you, Madam Chair.
For those of you that didn't take a moment to get to know him today, because your life will be enriched by that time you spend with him. Many people talk about just do the right thing, and it seems kind of, just a saying, or something you see on a t-shirt or in a commercial. But it was literally the way J. Paul Taylor has lived his entire life. And when we would go into caucuses, and it was the long, heartfelt caucuses where we're right on the issue, struggling for what we would do, and there would be people looking at costs, political ramifications, the type of fight it may be on the floor, or even back home explaining why you did what you did. J. Paul Taylor would stand up, usually at the end of the debate, and he would ask only one question: is it the right thing to do? And if it was the right thing to do, there was no doubt in anybody's mind what Paul Taylor was going to do. He always did the right thing. And when a person stands up in a community or in a public body such as the House and always does the right thing, they become known as the conscience of that body. And that is exactly what Paul Taylor did. And his legacy will endure forever. And Representative J. Paul Taylor, I want to tell you that your legacy is here today. Many of us, when we think about what we do, we just remember what you said. Is it the right thing to do? And then if it is the right thing to do, we're going to do it. And I appreciate you for doing that. So that's heartfelt and a little serious. On a lighter note, J. Paul Taylor is the only member of this legislature that have more cousins than I do. So I always joked every time we had any meeting and then anyone with the last name Martinez, I'd ask him if you're my cousin. And we'd start talking about it. We figure out somewhere, somehow. But J. Paul Taylor is literally cousin to almost everybody in New Mexico, from southern New Mexico all the way up to the area of Santa Rosa. And many family members from up there. So a lot of times we would be in a meeting throughout the state or with any type of person, and then J. Paul Taylor would tell them, this is how we're cousins. And he would be able to go through the family history. So he has a rich family lineage throughout New Mexico. So he is the only person, and I'm only giving it to you, J. Paul Taylor. You're the only person that has more cousins than I do. So I appreciate that. Thank you, J. Paul.
It's just tremendous thrill to have you here on the House floor. I think the speaker kind of stole my thunder because I'm proud to be one of your cousins as well. Representative J. Paul Taylor hails from the Romero Baca families up in Vegas, and we're a descendant of Secolino Romero, whose photograph is in the Speaker's office. He was the second Speaker of the House here in the state of New Mexico. So I didn't get a chance to serve with my cuz, but I met him when I was a young man at one of the Romero family reunions that the representative organized. And then a bigger thrill was we were both Obama delegates in Denver back in 2008, and I couldn't keep up with you, Representative. I couldn't keep up with you there at the Pepsi Center. But then this past summer, Madam Speaker, generally we had another Romero reunion up in Vegas, and my grandmother, Lucille Duran, passed away a few years ago, and making Representative Taylor the elder statesman of the family, and a distinction that makes me tremendously proud to be associated with you here on the floor by blood and just by the extended family here in New Mexico. And so anyway, I was in law school, Madam Speaker, and a buddy of mine came up to Santa Fe and kind of was disillusioned with the process, and he was bad-mouthing all the members, and then he goes, this and that. Well, except for Representative J. Paul Taylor. So you were an exception to the rule, and it's thanks for coming up here today and spending time with us, and I love you, cousin. God bless.
To know that as a Steinborn, I am not related to J. Paul Taylor, which is really my loss. But for those that aren't from southern New Mexico or maybe never served with Paul, you just can't appreciate the level of public servant that J. Paul Taylor not only was, but still is today. His house is still, any constituent, and I've been over his house, when constituents to this day, years out of office, will still call Paul, and his doors are still open to help anybody. And he's just as effective, or more so, than many of us in this chamber, because he really does care. And you've heard Representative McCamley occasionally invoke you, Paul, on the House floor, and your parting words to him about taking care of the poor and the sick and the needy, and trying to do the right thing. And the reality is that advice wasn't unique to Bill. Paul, you've given me that advice many times. You've probably given it to anybody who would ever listen. And, you know, we need more J. Paul Taylors in New Mexico. And, you know, I appreciate you still serving and being supportive of me and all the public servants in Doñana County, and always opening up your house and your heart to listen and give advice, which really I think is a mark of a person, how much they listen and will give time to not the most powerful, but the least powerful, those without a voice, those just starting out. And Paul, that's what you've always been about, and I really want to thank you for setting that example for everyone else, and just the kind of person you are, and just so thrilled to be a part of honoring you on the House floor today. And it's great to be with you, Mary Helen and Cynthia, and Paul, congratulations on a lifetime of public service and more years ahead. Thank you.
I'm trying not to cry right here, but we miss you. I was in the body when you were here. In fact, you were here when I arrived. And you taught me a lot. You taught me to look in the mirror every day and say, I'm going to do the right thing no matter what happens around me. And I very much appreciate that. So I really miss your presence up here. Representative Chase and I talk about you all the time. She's got a big picture of you in her office, and so we often talk about you when we're sitting in her office. So you're just such a wonderful person, wonderful educator, and wonderful teacher to those of us that have been honored to serve with you. And I really miss you, and I'm going to come to see you pretty soon, because I love that house of yours, and it's always open. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your service. Thank you for teaching us how to live with the best values we can muster. Thank you.
I too am a great fan of the former Representative J. Paul Taylor, and I have to tell you right now, he's dying of embarrassment. He hates this. When we put his name on the early childhood memorial that I was carrying, you know, we did that. Angie Basho went to visit him, talked with the gentleman from Bernalillo, Representative Kiki Saavedra, and asked him if he would kindly lend his name to the Early Childhood Memorial, because that had been one of his passions, is the early intervention. Get them early, and then we don't have to worry about whether they're going to be reading by first grade, second grade, third grade. They're not going to have to be retained. They're not going to be just a statistic as a teenage dropout, or a mom who is still in high school. And so Paul helped establish the Office of Child Development. His work in really developing the Office of Cultural Affairs, the Department of Cultural Affairs, making it a department, that is his legacy to us. And at the same time, he is the most modest individual. He's generous to a fault. I mean, he would give you anything. He opens his home to everyone. And we love him so much. We really, really do. I stayed at his home in November, and his daughter was out of town, so all the sons came by to check on him, make sure that everything was going right. And they are such characters. It reminds me that what he must have been a little bit of that in his youth too. He's less of a trickster now than he probably was. But I'm just so glad to see how engaged he is and how closely he follows what we're doing here. I mentioned during the debate on the health insurance exchange that after I talked to him about the bills, he investigated them. He looked into both of them. He talked to the attorney in the council service who had drafted the bills and informed himself as to what the right course of action was for us. So this is, I will always do as you have taught me to learn the facts and lead from the heart. And I'm just so glad to see you here today, and I hope you won't be embarrassed. We're just really honored to have you here. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
My mother, Bertha Morales Royban, was born and raised in Las Cruces, and along with my father, and who most of you met on opening day. And she grew up with Representative Taylor and Representative Taylor's family. And she absolutely adored him and would speak about him constantly. But what I want to share with everyone here and with him and he and his family is when Mary Helen, my cousin Mary Helen, I'm sorry, I called her Mary Helen, but Representative Garcia, Mary Helen Garcia, was running, and when she became elected state representative, Mary Helen oftentimes, very often, spoke to my mother and consulted with my mother as well, and kind of my mother was another mother for Mary Helen and her sister Emma Jean. My mother would say, and I'm going to say it in Spanish, ay, Dios mío, ojalá que le ponga atención María Elena a John Paul Taylor. Por favor, le ruego a Dios que le ponga atención a él, porque él sí sabe lo que está haciendo. Él tiene conciencia, conoce a la gente pobre, entiende las luchas de la gente pobre. Y él entiende que uno no tiene que ser pobre para entender las condiciones y para pelear para los derechos de la gente pobre. And then, I'm going to tell you, my mother would pray to God every day, and she would say, I hope Mary Helen listens to John Paul Taylor. I hope she listens to him, because he understands the needs of the poor. He understands what their conditions are and what their struggles are. And you don't have to be poor to understand and to fight for the poor. And my mother would raise us with that understanding as well. And so all of us were raised, and that's why I guess we're here today, here and in the Senate. And not only that, but we're here in our communities, continuing to fight on behalf of those that are not represented, those that are underrepresented, and those that every single day of their lives wake up wondering whether they're going to have food on the table, whether they're going to be able to drive to school or get to school, and whether they're going to be able to pay for the roof over their head. And it's because of Representatives Taylor, the representatives such as Representative Taylor and my mother and that generation, who didn't have to be necessarily poor, but they had the compassion, the understanding, the dedication and commitment to what their social responsibility was, no matter what position they held in life. So I just wanted to say thank you, because you and the generation of my mother and father are who taught us, along with everyone else, what we need to know in order to be truly representatives of our citizenry and of our districts. Thank you very much.
Representative Taylor, today is your day, as it should be. I was here and I was very honored to serve with you on the back row. As people have spoken, you were the conscience, but you literally looked over the floor, and we looked up to you for wisdom and guidance and you provided that. I want to thank you so much for what you've done for the state of New Mexico. People have talked with you about the kind gentleman that you are, but I also know you as a fighter for the young, for those who could not fight for themselves. You were a voice for the children who could not be here. You spoke for them, and we listened to them through you. How much more can the state of New Mexico say, but thank you to you for all you've done. And you will continue to do it. Your book will be an honor for all the students who read that and say, wish I could have met that man. Sounds like an individual who we should look up to. Madam Speaker, we're lucky to have him here today so we can look at you eye to eye, face to face, and say thank you for what you've done. Muchísimas gracias, señor. And by the way, my wife's a Martinez, and yes, they're related. My wife was related to you, and you showed us that in your pictures when we were at your home, and you opened up that house. And I tell you, those who have not been to his house, it's an art gallery subject to none in the nation. I tell you, those photographs go way back. But I tell you, thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much for being one of us.
Because of the disability of Jake Paul, he had a modified mic right there at his chair, and the mic kind of extended all the way up to where I'm standing, you know, from the table. And I'd go up to him and I joke and I'd tell him, Jake Paul, I hope we don't have to put a spring on your chair to kind of, when you get to that point when you can't get up on your own volition, that we have a spring on your chair, you just push a button and it pops you up. Estimada Speaker, Estimada Speaker, I have a lot of respect and love for this gentleman, to the point that every time I'm in Las Cruces, my sister always texts me and calls me and says to me, Miguel, when are you coming over? Because I have a sister in Las Cruces. And I tell her, well, I'm over here in Old Town Mesilla, kind of visiting Jake Paul and doing my regular oratory there at the Catholic Church in Mesilla. And I make that a little tradition, Estimada Speaker. When I'm ever in the Las Cruces area, I drop by the Catholic Church there in Mesilla, which is just about 50 yards from Jake Paul's house. And then I walk over to Jake Paul's house and just say hi, and he's always, willing to kind of finish the tour that we're still taking on his house. I think I'm about 80% done on the tour. And every time I'm there, we spend an hour going through a portion of the house. It's so lovely, it's so historical, it's so monumental, it's such a pillar. This gentleman is he's a treasure. Estimado hermano, you're a treasure to the people of New Mexico. You're a treasure to the people of the United States. You're a treasure to the world. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Members, I have 3 things that I just want to share with you. One of them is when I was in the 8th grade, I had a teacher by the name of Guadalupe Aban. I guess a cousin or an aunt or something, but relative to Paul Taylor. And I guess she was a very much as that Representative Taylor was a big mentor to her, because she mentioned him so much. And in the 8th grade, well, to me, who is Paul Taylor? That she always was talking about Paul Taylor. So then when I got to meet Paul Taylor, to me it was like meeting Paul McCartney, because after all these years, I finally found out who Paul Taylor was, and for the many beautiful things that I've already said about him, with his involvement with everything that he worked with. Then the second part, just to tell you, the influence that Representative Taylor has had. At La Fonda Hotel, they made a room special for him, and then we were next door neighbors. The room got too big, so then I got to get his room, which was very nice because you could almost even exercise, and it was like a gym. you know, and he had another room, but we were next to each other for quite a few years, and from time to time, I would get a ride with him or vice versa, but always offering to do something for each other, you know, which, what a neighbor to have. The third part, members, is one of the things that always impressed me the most that I have seen here in the 19 years that I have been here. When we talked about our students and our children, the first thing he talked is that they're a human person. You know, our children are a person before they become a number, and we get it all confused with assessments and tests and everything else. You know, and keeping that in mind that, you know, these individuals come to us, you know, as a person, as a human person, and you just spread that to all of us. You know, that's something that we all have, you know, from your mentoring of what you have given to us. And Representative and your family, have a beautiful day. Thank you for being here.
My room now in La Fonda is next to where we used to stay. So every night when I go, before I pass here, I think about you. You're a real hero. And I'll always love you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Taylor, I'm still here. And when I look around and see all the changes that have occurred in this legislature, I can't help but reminisce of the good times when we had a person here that advocated for everybody. We used to have our battles in the Appropriations Committee. How much can we save on this issue? How much can we save on that issue? Us conservatives have a tendency of trying to do that. But Representative Taylor always said, this is what we need, not what we can save, to represent the entire people in the state of New Mexico. And I miss that kind of dialogue that seems to be disappearing in the legislative process. This is why I miss people like you, Representative Taylor, and maybe somewhere along the line we may be related. I'd like to see the genealogy of J. Paul Taylor to see how many relatives does he have around the state of New Mexico, or even beyond that. And I guess what reminds me the most is every time an issue that comes up about let's merge the Department of Cultural Affairs with tourism, I'm always reminded, Representative Taylor used to call and say, don't you dare do that. And so I remember that every time it comes up, and I always say, I can't support that kind of a proposal. Madam Speaker, I noticed that you have a biographer, and there's a publication that says, J. Paul Taylor, the man from Siam. I would strongly suggest that we maybe publish a book that says, J. Paul Taylor, a man for all people. So, Representative Taylor, again, welcome to the old house, welcome to the new house, and I hope you have a successful life and good health. God keeps us on the search for a particular purpose, and we're not called until we've completed that purpose. You're a good example of that. So again, thank you for being here.
Some of the things, of course, that I've observed when you were here, some of the things you expressed, and some of the issues we have talked about. I think about you and, of course, the boys that I met, your boys, and I'm happy to see you. You look well. I want to wish you good health and a long life. And it's good to meet your daughter. I understand the daughter right next to you. And when I come down to Las Cruces one of these days again, I'm going to come by and see you. And I'm happy to see you. And I just want to wish you well.
It was a great thing because I entered as the third member of the Taylor Caucus, which was unusual. We had J. Paul as the statesman, elder statesman of the group, and James Taylor, who were on the floor, and then I came along. It was extremely disappointing to me when J. Paul decided to retire, because that that deflated the caucus to 2, and it destroyed our influence when he left. You know, I think about the day that I was sitting in my office and I got a call from an El Paso media outfit that wanted to interview me. And I knew immediately they had the wrong Taylor, and I thought, you know, I could really do some damage here. We love each other to death. Our politics are 180 degrees apart, but you know, obviously that was a situation that was easy to figure out right quick because Jay Paul is absolutely the greatest statesman I ever knew. And you know, he serves with my wife on the Board of Regents of the Museums and Monuments, and she just loves him to death. I think everybody does because you're a gentle, kind human being, and if the world was full of you, we wouldn't have much work to be doing in this room. Anyway, thank you so much for your friendship, for your contribution to the state of New Mexico and the society. Love you a bunch.
Taylor, and I have a cousin named John Taylor, so I'm going to say I'm related. I'm a freshman this year, and I never had the luxury of meeting you, but I hear your name a lot, and your passion seems to be my passion, self-care and early childhood. I look forward to the chance to meeting you, and I think you are just a wonderful man.
I actually represent District 33, which is Paul's old district, and a lot of us from the Las Cruces and Doña County area know Paul real well. And there's 2 words that would come to mind when talking about Paul. And the first one is what we call each other in here all the time, which is gentleman, gentlelady. You're not a lady, so I'm not bringing that up. When we say the word gentleman, Paul exemplifies that word. He is kind, he's caring, he is unfailingly polite, and he listens to everybody. And it's just a great quality. But I think the second quality is actually even more important. And you know, Paul cares. He cares about people. As my neighbor pointed out, you're not just a number, you're a person with feelings and needs and wants, and those things matter. And Paul cares about history. As everybody else here has pointed out, I too have had the tour of the house, and the historical references in there are just awesome. And I think those things really, really matter to a lot of people, and it's why so many people think so highly of you. I just want to say that the last words you told me before I came up here, I'm trying real hard to keep up with them. I really am. And I just want to thank you for letting me sit in your seat.
Do. And so I sought out J. Paul Taylor, and he gave me some very good and simple guidance to get started in the New Mexico House of Representatives. Wish me luck. And Madam Speaker, after the session, and I saw J. Paul again, he said I did a good job, and I appreciated that very, very much. That was a great compliment, and I really, really appreciate it. So so great to see you today, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk some more, Madam Speaker, and Madam Gentlelady from Doña. Thank you.
Hey, Paul McCarty has nothing on you. You are our rock star. And you're a hero to many of us because you care for people and you care for people who need to be cared for. The most important thing, I think, Paul, about everything you do, is that everything you do comes from the heart. Usted tiene un corazón más grande que todo el mundo. And we love you, J. Paul. We love you because you've earned that love. By the way you live your life, by your actions and your beliefs and your caring nature. Paul, we love you, and it's good to see you once again. As Lucky said, I'm still here also.
J. Paul Taylor, I want to tell you, you're the greatest influence I've had in this legislature. I'd like to tell the story. I came into this legislature being appointed, and I think I was appointed 2 or 3 days before the session started, and you can imagine what I was going through, and you took me under your wing and gave me advice, and I think a lot of times you were disappointed in me, but but still you kept, especially in health issues, you kept me educated and on the right track. And I can only say I really appreciate what you did for me. Thank you, Paul.
Representative J. Paul Taylor, it is indeed an honor to see you sitting there before us and to be recognizing you for your attributes that acclaim New Mexico across this state. One of the greatest joys of my life is having the opportunity to serve with you in the House of Representatives. And I know that you are familiar, and so am I, with some of the debates that we've had and some of the statements that have made on this floor that we share together. But most of all, Madam Speaker and the gentleman from Doñana, it is indeed a pleasure to having served with you who have unwavering support for justice in the state of New Mexico, but across this country and for our children. And for that, I am pleased and honored to be your friend and having the opportunity to sit in the House of Representatives with you is something that I will always treasure for the rest of my life. And I thank you for sharing your friendship with me.
I am basically the new kid on the block in Doñana County. But when I visited Doñana, and I had the pleasure of meeting Representative Taylor, the short visit that we had, and his words of inspiration and welcome, that meant a lot to me because somebody of your stature, recognition, and being honored in Doñana County with great respect, and your our short conversation and your words of wisdom to me really helped me get through the rough times that we were going through in Doñana County. So I really want to thank you for what you've done and continue doing what you do, because everybody looks up to you, and I thank you for that.
And to most of us, we tend to favor our own districts. Paul Taylor's district was the whole state. Not only that, but everybody's problem was his problem, everybody's need was his need. And so, he was so involved in what he was doing for the poor, the sick, and the needy. Sometimes he forgot to eat. Most of the time he forgot to eat. The secretaries in our compound, they were worried about him, that he wasn't eating well most of the time. But Paul, I tried to take over from where you left, but it's a hard job. We could never accomplish what you accomplished. We will try to do as much as we can to remedy the needs of the people who are in most need. We will always remember you as the greatest American here for people who are in the state of New Mexico. I hope you have a great day here today. May God give you a lot more years to come visit us again. Thank you.
J. Paul Taylor, it's always been such a privilege when I get the opportunity to talk to you. When I first met you, you invited me into your home, and I had truly, when I left your home, it was one of those moments that you know that you've talked to somebody that's a great person, who truly has the will to make changes, the desire to make changes, and who has made changes for the lives of the people that we serve.
I should say gentlemen and gentlewomen from the House. We could probably stay here all day long because someone has something positive to say about J. Paul Taylor. I think everybody knows that Joseph Cervantes, now in the Senate, is my nephew, and he has tried 5 times to get him down here. He's always been humble. When we were together, I used to remind him not to be so humble, because for sure I couldn't be that humble, and everybody knows that. Paul, you're such a gentleman, you're such a statesman, and of course, an advisor and a mentor to many of us. And we will continue to keep you in our prayers and in our thoughts. And I will continue to ask you for your advice. I'm not real sure I always take it, but at least I listen. At this time now, I ask unanimous consent of the House that all present here voted in the affirmative on House Memorial